Good afternoon, everyone. We're delighted this afternoon as we call to order the Commission to Study Slavery and Subsequent Jure and de facto racial and economic discrimination against African American. We are at the Library of Virginia, 800 East Broad Street. Today's date is Wednesday, July the 19th, and at 1 p.m. And so at this time, I would certainly ask that my colleagues around the table were just starting with to my right, can I say favorite? Yeah, you can say favorite. Chair. And Senator. All right, if she would share right now, and then we'll move on. Say whatever you desire.
Welcome everyone. I'm Amy Locke. I represent the 23rd District, although it's the second term. But it will become the 23rd District. Hampton and Newport News. Welcome everyone to our meeting.
All right, Dr. Ken.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Gilbert. Supposedly retired, dean and professor at Virginia University, and still remain pastor of Heavenly Baptist Church in the United States.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ed Ayers. I'm a historian and former president of the University of Richmond. Under the English Commission.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jody Allen. I'm a historian. I teach at William and Mary, and I'm also the director of the Living Project, A Journey of Reconciliation.
Good afternoon. Good to see you. Thank you.
I'm Karen Cherry. I am a curator at the Virginia Museum of History and Culture here in Richmond.
Awesome, thank you. So we are delighted. We do have a quorum, and we're delighted everyone is here. As we move forward. Dominique, you want to say anything at this time, and then or wait until okay. And I want to before we move on for the approval of the agendas and the minutes, previous meetings. I hope you've had an opportunity to look over those and if there's any correction that you share. But Sandy Treadway. I don't know if you all know, but at the end of the year, she will be retiring. And they are lost. But anyway, it's just a big loss. But she shared with me, which I had no clue, that this work she's been in for 47 years. Wow. Yeah. But we certainly want to thank you on behalf of this committee just for your diligence, your effort in helping us to organize around it and make sure that we had, facility was used and all of the things that we needed that you were able to provide. And so you've been so, if the word cooperative in helping us to, move this agenda forward in terms of just establishing ourselves and making certain that we had what we needed to make it work. So I want to personally say thank you for all that you have done. And as always, you have always been very supportive of the General Assembly as a whole. So appreciate that. Believe you what you do. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, at this time, we have ask for the approval of the minutes and approval of the agenda and the previous meeting minutes. Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Motion has been made and properly second for the approval of the agenda and the meeting minutes. All those who are in favor say aye. Aye. Those that are opposed, okay, there appear to be none. For the chair's update, we just I have a few things I just wanted to share. The 2023 meeting schedule, again, has been set today's meeting, and then the meeting on August the 23rd, something went around to all of you to sort of look at this because we are moving in the direction of closing this down. Again, the last report will be due to the General Assembly on January when we open session. I think it's a date that is actually, is it the 10th of January maybe? Okay, that is scheduled to be, to submit our report. But prior to that, there are several meetings that we certainly want to have, and some of those meetings, we need to have it as a I mean, all the meetings are public, but I want us to put emphasis on, publicizing it. So that there would be, you know, an opportunity for people to come, to see the work that we have done, to get it presented to them, and then even get feedback from people who are there, individuals who are coming. And we can decide which meeting we want that to happen. We do need to have a place, because I'm hoping that it would be an opportunity to get a couple of hundred people there, you know. I think that would be a great benefit to the public. As they look at what the work that has been done and the players in helping to establish this information, this work. So August the 23rd is one, then October the 18th, and then December the 13th. And so those are the next few days that will be on the calendar to look at. And I don't know, but does anybody have any suggestion before I go on in terms of that meeting? My thought may be, well, let me give you a thought first. The dates are August the 23rd, which, yeah, I think we can take that off of the calendar for that particular meeting, but certainly October the 18th or December the 13th. So those are two dates. October will put us sort of right in between December the 13th and the day that the last report is due. So my thought would be sometime in October, but I want to hear from you all. Any suggestions?
I think that sounds good. It gives us time to incorporate any public comments into our report, as well as time before the hecticness of the holiday season
Okay.
ramps up. And depending on how many people you anticipate attending, I'd like to suggest that BMHC, my museum, we have an auditorium that's 370 people.
Okay, how many?
307.
Oh, okay. All right, okay,
And also room for overflow and.
Okay. all right. And parking is good?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, anyone else? Any other suggestions?
I was gonna recommend that, but I'm glad I didn't have to recommend this place.
Okay, okay. All right, well then, everybody's in agreement with it, then we'll go with October.
well, they just have to, by people, make sure.
Okay, yeah, no, not in terms of,
Separate.
not in terms of the place, but the date. I think that we have some options, and if there's anyone else want to suggest any other place, please by all means, just let us know. But I think that, October the 18th.
We're looking at, what time frame?
I would think it would be an evening, yeah. Evening meeting and do some due diligence. I've already talked to some folks, about the possibility of a meeting. I didn't give them any date, and there are some individuals who said they're ready and willing to help get it publicized and get folks there. Okay.
And what was the date again?
18th of October. Oh, okay. What, Dr. Kenny? Okay. Okay, all right.
We might think too about an alternative place that worked well during the Monument Acting Commission was the public library. Feels, not everybody will, the public library feels like a shared space.
Okay, okay.
And it's not as big or as nice, but it worked well for public comment. That also means, of course, if we follow the schedule, we'll have to have something written for people to have to respond to, which would be meaningful, I think. So we'll kind of reverse engineer from that.
Okay. All right.
And I assume wherever we hold this meeting, we will kind of broadcast it virtually so that.
Yeah,
around the clock.
we're gonna have, every, opportunity to make sure that the public's engaged, and so all the virtual, all of those things will be also made available. Okay. All right, and maybe, is anyone else on, so Dr. Kenny, you're just on the 18th, what, Dominic, what day is the 18th?
It's a Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay. All right. All right, we selected that date. Is it any other? You gone the entire week?
You know, I'm not clear.
Okay.
And of course, that's no problem.
No,
It's just,
no.
Accepted an assignment
Mhm.
that we had to travel around the country, you know, supposed to be.
Okay.
Three times.
Big time.
And that's one of the things they put.
Okay. Okay, all right. Well, I would love to see if we could have everyone there, at that particular meeting, again, because that would be the bigger focus on probably at the whole time we'd be meeting on the public engagement.
I'm afraid I probably won't.
So where are you going?
He's got a national assignment.
He's got a assignment as well.
We really will have been on a long trip to California and back.
Okay,
For work, but, if it were another week after that, I would be back, I think.
You will?
Be back at the end of October.
will you be here the week afterwards?
All the time.
Will you be here?
Supposed to be in Portugal.
You know what? Well, we're just going to Portugal, let's all of us do that, how about that one? The week afterwards, or the week after is fine, sure? Okay. All right,
That's better for me. too.
okay,
And it's also, that's plenty of time in between meetings, so.
yeah, okay. All right, we're gonna try to go for this, the week afterwards, okay? All right, and see if we can
I
just,
thought, did we decide 2 weeks after?
That would be the week of October 30th, right? And it's-
the week, the 18th and the next week that's Wednesday, right? So that would be the 20th, the 25th? Okay,
Or November first.
Or November first?
The week after would be the 25th, and the week following that would be November.
okay. November 1st? Ms. Portugal, would you be?
I will be back.
I'm going with Carl. Okay, let's try for that again, so we could, it would be, I think, for everybody, we could try to be there, work that out. Okay, Dominique, you okay? All right.
I have a
Yes,
question.
Yes.
Is that the regular commission meeting, or would we still meet as the commission and then have a public meeting?
no, that would be the regular meeting, yes, that would be our regular meeting. Okay, and we'll try to do whatever we need to do in August, you know, whatever need to be said, and, you know, anything that, that people would suggest, but the bigger, that would be an opportunity to engage the public and share with them, what we've been doing, you know, where we are now and where we're going. Okay,
And so our next meeting is on August
23rd.
23rd.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so the December, the 13th meeting, will be, we had Dr. Allen been so gracious and talking to them, she talked to offer an opportunity for us to be in William and Mary, who will be hosting, at that institution, so that's the December the 13th, okay? And so thank you, Dr. Allen. We've been working on this for a moment, trying to get to this place, and so we are delighted. The other, bullet point that I want you, the California report was issued to you on June the 26th. I hope that, some of you had an opportunity to look at it, and we have, allocate some time in the discussion part of the agenda to just help address that or to address it. It was, their report was pretty intense actually, and just a lot of great information there. So we will again have the opportunity to talk about that. And then, we want the subcommittees, if we can get that done before the 23rd committee meeting. I'm sorry, well, I thought I had cut this off, but obviously I had not. Before the 23rd, to have the subcommittees to meet and finalize your recommendations Again, so we can move forward to just, making sure that we got, we're dotting out all the i's and crossing all the t's, and it's reflected in terms of what you think need to be, again, in that final document. And, so please, we ask that you, do that, okay, to get those, thank you, committees finalized information. I think that's all I have, that, for the chair update. At this time, then, Dominique, are you ready for?
I only have a few, announcements or updates.
Okay,
In the back of your packet on your tables, you will see an updated, bibliography from us and the library staff. This is in reflection to your previous comments of looking for more of a who's list on the bibliography instead of those very, very long annotated lists that we were doing. So in response to that, we've updated, cleaned it, added some things, taken away some things. It's a lot cleaner, it's a lot shorter, and it will be published on a resources tab as we requested on the website in conjunction with the final report. This isn't the end all be all, it's absolutely just a place where we're going. A lot of the resources that we've been pulling, if you'd like to see something added or removed, I'm more than happy to do so. Please just send me an email at any time. I'm happy to make those updates. And then in conversation with Delegate.
I'm sorry, so it says the select, what's it selected to do? What, these are just, yeah, what's the principal selection?
That's a great question. I use the word selection because the original bibliography is probably hundreds of records in an Excel spreadsheet that we're sharing amongst the staff. So it is several pages and several tabs of a bibliography. So when it's like selected, we tried to pick from each one of the subcommittee categories as well as each one of the intellectual categories that are outlined in the bill and identify a source or two rather than the tabs and tabs that we do currently have. So when I meant select, I mean, we don't have to use that word, but when we said select, it was more just because it's one source out of 10 for each category.
I do think it's helpful at some point to key it back to which subcommittee it's addressing, so that people would have some idea of what use they're supposed to make of this. And I help myself from saying, I've got two of my former students have books like this.
no, do that. Look at.
I just cannot bring some of myself.
Okay.
And if I may, the only other update that I had for you is that as we're scheduling things out, in conversations with Delegate McQuinn, we're trying to backtrack those final recommendations, so that the report can finally be finalized and written, and there's some layout that has to be done before it gets submitted to legislative services and things like that, which is due on January 10th. So we had asked, if possible, to have the absolute final by December 1st. That way we can use the December 13th meeting to have discussion. And then that gives me still about a month to get that final layout done into the format that legislative services and the General Assembly require.
And what will that look like, say, in comparison to the executive summary we've done in California?
So I'm not as familiar with what California's legislative services protocols of what their submission looks like. So I want to caveat by saying I'm not familiar with California. Here, however, the report that was submitted for the interim reports and for all the interim reports prior even to 2023 is the format. So there is a body section, a heading section, a body section. It's a pretty straightforward legislative report. Their report was far more graphic design and had beautiful layout and graphs and print and images. Our report doesn't necessarily require those elements in the same way, but the information can still be there.
It would still be narrative, somewhat like California.
Yes, yes.
And what sort of length?
Oh, I think so. And for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to check out California's report, it is 1,080 pages.
Do you don't have it?
I do.
Okay, so you got
I-
executive.
The executive summary,
The executive summary.
which is still,
Which is 74 pages.
Yeah, it is still, yeah.
and that's the reason I was using that as the basis
Yeah.
of our comparison.
Yes, and it's in a completely different, set of circumstances. I believe I read, and please correct me if I've misunderstood, but I believe I read that report had 35 writers on it. It had an entire department of publishers and designers and it had.
It also seemed to have a lot of things that were not essential to.
Virginia.
So, we're looking at something maybe half that long?
For 500 pages?
35.
Oh. Sorry, I almost had it. We could, that is at your discretion. I can support and facilitate whatever you all decide. If you would like to shoot for 35 pages with your, recommendations, and we have the research to support it. We have all the references to support it. It's up to you to decide how long.
Well, I don't really have a position. This just seems kind of diffuse. I mean, if we're trying to make sort of an impact, this seems sort of longer and more, I like to something more direct. That's just something.
Think in terms of, okay, the presentation, the final document.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think you're absolutely right in terms of how, I think that this is just to, basically was to add, to let you know what was happening.
Oh, yeah.
What had been done, you know, and how we would proceed, okay?
Oh, I
Okay, but this is what, all right, and Senator Locke, and I don't know how she feels about it. But the difference, I think that we ought to have a nice presentation, okay? I'm not just talking about in terms of the wording or language or whatever. I think it should be, something that we want to pick up, okay? Just looking at the outside. We would want to, as a legislator, read. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's just going to be enough to have on commission to study slavery and da, da, da. So we have the resources to help support, Dominique, to look at the final, you know, to help her prepare the final document. If she needs it. We're not expecting her to do everything on her own, but I think it should be, an attractive piece, is the word, to present to the legislators, okay? And to the public, because it's also gonna be a public document. Now, whether it's 10 pages, 20, 35, you know, I guess it depends on the information and the final, subcommittee's, report. You know.
Not your regular J-Bar study.
Right, exactly. That's it. You know what, that was good. Not your regular, yeah. Okay.
And there's latitude to do that in terms of the legislation allows us to.
Yeah, well, this is what the legislation would allow, because it doesn't have, it's not specific in terms of what the final report would look like or what no. So we can, we have the flexibility, but we also have the resources, because a lot of the resources that we could have used, we have not used, and we had, put money aside to bring in speakers and all that. So a lot of those resources have not been used.
Just wanted to call people's attention to in the California one on page 10.
Okay.
The illustration that compares red line to today is produced by the University of Richmond. And they just won a $250,000 grant from the Department of Health to show across the nation. This is the best in the United States produced at UR on their mapping inequality site, which is really one of the most important things, producing the red line. I think it's the most important thing. And then they have if you look at that page, if you have it, on that page, there's another project, Not Even Past,
Right.
which follows that to today. It shows how the patterns in this city, and obviously Richmond's that way, but we also have other Virginia cities. So, when you find California is using stuff from the University of Richmond. So I think it could be a great theme because it's the clearest indication of the direct legacies of slavery and segregation that we have. Of how today's, and the New York Times has used the same map that we created. They created, to show how health disparities today map exactly onto this. So
Yeah.
I was just glad that I looked at that map, it kind of looks like you are. I mean, very closely at the type, and it is. It's a digital scholarship lab, University of Richmond.
That's his second round.
And you know what, you do it, I didn't make either one of these things. It's vicarious practice. No, but it's just a resource that we can have that I think can show that people in Virginia, are reckoning with this and actually leading the country and thinking about what this all looks like. So,
Are we reckoning with it?
well, this project is.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
okay,
Very clearly.
all right. Well,
And beginning by acknowledging and mapping in a way that nobody else has.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And while I'm holding forth, I had one of the thoughts that it doesn't brag, it doesn't involve me at all, but as I was reading over the subcommittee reports, I was admiring the way that they were building on good things that are happening in the Commonwealth anyway. And I remembered that Virginia was the first state to formally apologize for slavery in 2007, and John McEachin, unanimous voice vote. And so as we are promoting these things, kind of take some of the partisan edge out of it, by pointing out that we're building on something that the General Assembly led the nation in 2007. So it just occurred to me that these are things that I'm thinking about what the final report might look like. To be able to frame it as we're building on important steps that people took on for. So
Excellent, wonderful,
thank you for your patience.
Thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, so anyone else in terms of the final report again, because we're gonna be, Dominique and, we working toward it as we, move forward. A coffee table. Yes. I agree. Yes.
I'm curious to hear from the legislators among us is how much attention do you think needs to be paid in this report to trying to forestall criticism and opposition to the notion of separation? And one thing I found kind of compelling about the executive summary of the California report was their listing of precedents for paying out reparations, both domestic and international. I think in our context, we could probably just focus on Virginia examples or maybe a few national examples if we felt that was necessary. But, you know the legislative bodies here better than I do. You probably have a sense of the arguments in the opposition the report might face. So I'm curious to what extent you think we need to try to forestall some of the criticism.
There's an expectation of criticism just by the very nature of the title of this subcommittee. And by the very nature of the climate in which we find ourselves. And I don't think that we, and I'm speaking for me, I don't think that we should be concerned about what other folks are going to think about what we find. Or the direction in which we're going to go and what we're going to uncover. in terms of how this is going to play out. Because, fact is fact, truth is truth. However it, plays, however it, wherever this, subcommittee finds itself, then that's where it finds itself. And if folks are uncomfortable with that, I'm sorry for your discomfort. What can I do to help you with your discomfort? But this is what it is. I hope that it helps you with your healing. Because part of why this was started in the first place is to help us get to some healing and some real truth.
Nothing that's to me an important part of this. That the purpose is not to foment division, nor to create discomfort, but be an agent of healing and restoration. But before that can occur in any given society, there has to be an engagement of truth. And so, in a very real sense, this is part of the truth telling. Now, the question becomes: is what kind of recommendations and how bold are they in light of the truth that they should be?
And there's gonna be some people who are not gonna accept one word of this, no matter what, And there's gonna be some folks who will ever read the report, ever, just by the very nature of the topic.
But we were commissioned, based on an objective that was passed by the General Assembly, signed by the governor, at least at that time. And I think as long as we are carrying it out and doing our due diligence, Senator Locke, who talked about it, and certainly Dr. Kenny, who those words, the truth is the only way we're going to be able to reconcile the differences of division, of superiority, of inferiority, of all of those things that have gotten us to a place that we are in this nation. In Virginia leading the way. And one of the things that I remember saying when this came about in terms of this commission, and I certainly had to thank my good friend who's on, Dr. Cassandra Newby Alexander. I went to her many times, had conversation with her, and then Dr. Carruthers, who I many conversations with her as well. What this is really got to be about in black and white, opportunity to have truth telling. Okay. And then in that, I'm going to go to first a biblical reference, the truth will set you free. If people desire to continue to be handicapped, chained by their own, by the lies that we have lived over and over again, I can't help, to free them. This is what I'm hoping that people would see in black and white when we are finished. Individuals who have taken 2 years basically of their time and energy and resources and put it into a document so that all of us, and certainly the next generation, even if we don't get it, I'm rooting for the next generation that they're going to see something and they're going to get it. Because if not, we'll continue to be stuck in the doom of complacence of some of the dynamics that we're dealing with right now. So I'm hoping that that's what this is all about. And we're going to have some, we're going to have some criticism. There will be people who won't believe it. There'll be fake news for somebody, but what kind of control do we have? To our own self, we have to be true. And I think that that's what we have done, Anyway, Dominique, I think there's a couple of individuals. Is it Dr. Newby Alexander? Mm-hmm.
Hi, and thank you so much for recognizing me and for your comments. One of the things that I know people like to dismiss is anecdotal information or general information that summarizes. I would very much recommend that the commission take the resources that we have and compile a list of data. So Dr. Ayers suggested, mapping inequality as a site to utilize. There are some other groups who are doing a similar kind of thing. For example, in my area, Christopher Newport University's geography program has been doing a lot, and in particular, one of the professors there who's been working with us on the South Side issue, and this is the Berkeley region, where we've found that in a 1 mile radius, that community has 20 toxic sites. They have the highest rate of strokes of anyone in our region. And there are a whole host of other health issues because this community has been inundated, as many traditional Black communities, with either public nuisance, so dumping sites and so forth, which they have that too. But also with toxic sites, so heavy industries being rezoned to go into that area. And we see the same thing happen in Norfolk, throughout Norfolk. We see the same thing happening in Newport News and Hampton, all over the region where there are concentrations of African Americans. And Hampton Roads has the largest of the Commonwealth. So I would recommend that we come armed with our information, because sometimes data says more and is much more impactful. And especially if you overlay that with the redlining maps. We've seen that the highways were positioned almost in line with the redlining maps, so that they put those highways straight through dissecting Black communities or creating this artificial barrier to enforce what the Buchanan versus Worley case said you can't do, which is to limit people's neighborhoods by race. But they use the highway system to do that. So I would say let's consider putting the monies that we do have set aside and really investing in having a social geographer with GIS programming pull together this information that supports a lot of what we're saying. And that includes, wealth disparities, especially as it relates to home owning, and how so many Black communities were devastated in terms of loss of their homes through eminent domain, tax credits, rezoning, all kinds of things that they would use to force Black people to surrender their homes. Burton Station in formerly Princess Anne County, now Virginia Beach, is a perfect example where in 1960 they were forbidden from even improving their homes. The city took until 2014 to put water and sewage into that community, only because they wanted to completely take it over and industrialize it. And so, here you have generations of wealth that were destroyed systematically by the city over a period of almost 100 years.
Am I the only one who can't hear?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, hold on.
The comprehensive, calculated and constructed fashion in which things were done. So, it was purposeful, and at every level, it had, consequences
Yes.
that are related, whether it pertains to health, wealth, whether it pertains to economic, whether it pertains to education. You touch one and you touch any aspect of the demon and you will encounter, the tentacles of the demon.
Yes, yeah. But I think you said a very comprehensive racism.
Yeah.
I mean, it was intended, that was his intention to make sure that it spread abroad. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, this is one of the things that this conversation is.
Are you able to hear, Doctor? You can hear now? Okay, all right. thank you.
Yes.
One of the things that this conversation is bringing up for me is just wondering, what is is there a mechanism in place to make sure that this report doesn't become a report on a shelf somewhere that's never, enacted?
It is there a mechanism? Other than the recommendations and making certain that once the information is formatted, it's in place, goes before the General Assembly, it then becomes a public document. Do we have an entity that we have communicated with to say, help us to help push this over the finish line? I think you're gonna have, first of all, legislators who want to make sure that these recommendations are not just put on the shelf, okay? Because some of them in many ways have been put on hold. And there have been information, legislation that say we want to look at the word reparation within the legislation. There have been other legislation that have been said that universities ought to take responsibility for it. Some of these things have in some way been put on hold, trying to wait for the finalization of this document, okay? So you have, there is clearly individuals who want to see this pushed through, okay? Want to see recommendations looked at, want to see us, those recommendations, depending on what they are, how do we then put legislation in place to try to carry that to the next place, okay? Now, the dynamics of the time, the landscape, we don't know what will happen, okay? But clearly, some of these things that we're dealing with now, I assume this too shall pass. We don't really pay it on this. But we can help keep it alive, okay? All right? Those of us who have spent their time and their energy, we can help keep it alive. But there are legislators who can help keep it alive as well. And you've got a group that's coming in that I am, I had a level of confidence in some of them that I may not have necessarily had been some folks from the past, okay? So, yeah, but I think we also have opportunity to talk to what would be or to whom do we, have conversations about helping to make sure that they keep this in the forefront of the public. There are organizations, there are groups, there are, I always say that, hopefully every pastor would have a copy of whatever the final document is, so that you can, keep it alive. Okay.
Would that recommend some form of orientation for all, particularly persons that you would consider favorable to support? They immediately, when they're on board, they're exposed to the work of this commission, perhaps even meet with the commission and have conversation about what has happened, or what's going forward, and they would be fully aware of the work that under your leadership that you said a lot that has been done, and what are going to be some of the necessary investments to ensure, continuation.
Right.
At what point will that be necessary? It will be, come from the legislature and not from a commission.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what, I had just been thinking about this stuff in the, you know, after Dominique and I met last week or whatever. But the other thing is, the work that we have done, is this just the beginning of work that is needed? And so do we continue to try to move this ship on through the General Assembly for a continual study or look at this, you know, yeah, continue to, yes, you heard Senator Lott, and I'll drink to that. So, yes, Dr. King, and I think that there need to be an orientation people that you're sitting down talking with, you know, there's two, certainly the caucus and then the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus needs to be, certainly very much abreast of this final document, but also the universities, need to be,
I thought that was an important point from Cassandra's point of view. There's a lot of great work being done at universities across the Commonwealth on this front. Sure Andrea knows about the maps being done in Charlottesville in the same way, you know. So I think that to show that the basic knowledge is broad, deep, and ongoing. Would be helpful.
yeah.
Along the same lines of conversation, just there's very encouraging answers to both these things. But would we expect that this would be a draft, would be an object of contention in the election this fall? Is that something that, I mean, what do you think? Don't really need to answer that, but it just seems that something like we think about November 1st. It's pretty close to the election and having a draft about. It's just something to
Well,
think about.
yeah, it is.
I don't know what to think about it, but I'm just calling. In the purpose of having it accomplished, you want to take into account the political environment, which is going to be released, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And that way too, words like reparations have been weaponized.
Yes, yes.
There'll be people who won't even read the document, they'll read the title.
Yes.
And then that's a basis for exclusion and thrown out and saying anti this. That's why I think in some ways, the heart of our communication is truth telling.
Yes. Yeah.
Are we at a point in our life together that we can hear the truth? And hear that. Falsehoods and I think there are a lot of people, black and white, amen, who are prepared to say, let's first of all agree on what truth looks like. Now, this is the truth, what is required of us. That may be small, but if we acknowledge the truth, that's a big step.
That's a big step, Y'all are deep, man, here.
If I could say one more thing, I would really like for this commission to actually make a recommendation, to, you know, to, I guess, contract out with, one of the groups to, you know, or an entity to sort of crowdsource a lot of this information with a collaboration of these other universities and in some cases nonprofit organizations who have been looking at this data that's dealing with health, this data that's dealing with you know, where things are spatially and the impact that this has. So you have so much EPA data that can be downloaded into these maps and really shown some correlation, especially when you cross-reference it with the redlining maps, and also with the concentrations. You know, we've had people, for example, who are part of the city of Norfolk who claim, well, you know, we don't know who's living in these communities. Well, you know, that's a bunch of nonsense. They do know who's living in those communities. And so you have people who are making those claims, but the reality is we do know that those districts, what districts are majority Black, what districts are majority white, and talking about the average age and the health disparities that are there, and how closely or how far away they're located to you know, to healthcare facilities, to, you know, healthy living stores, you know, as opposed to these convenience stores that too often have a lot of liquor, and if they have any fresh fruits and vegetables, it's at a price that's 10 times higher than if they went into a grocery store. So the data's there. It's just a matter of pulling it together, and I think that's going to be really important. And so then the commission can then, you know, ask the question, where do we go from here? And make some recommendations in the hope that there will be a response to where do we go from here, because these are members of the Commonwealth. These are citizens of the Commonwealth. They're contributors. Many of them have families whose history goes back centuries. Where do we go from here in addressing the problem for the citizens of the Commonwealth? And I can't hear anything. The sound seems to have gone out again.
Can you hear? No,
Yes, I can hear now.
because I was loud. Okay, so Dominique, you're basically capturing the discussion to make sure that we're, okay, all right. And I think that those are some great suggestions in terms of certainly, I guess in terms of the final documentation, to making certain that there are, along with our recommendations, along with the work that we have done, there are other ways of conveying the message. I think yeah, that would be great to, yeah. All right, got it. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Now, was there a question that I did not answer? Anybody? No. Okay. All right, well, and we're gonna keep moving in terms of, and thank you all for that, adding into what we expect, our expectations, because there are gonna be even greater expectations publicly, okay? Once this hit, the public, and the public have a sense of what we've been doing, and the final information that will go forward. And I'm trusting again, I'm hoping I'm not getting ready to say that Dr. Treadway is okay with it, but I'm trusting that we got the best library in the country that will be very instrumental in helping us to get to where we need. And if there's additional resources that we need, that they may be able to help support us in those efforts. Okay. All right. So I'm not even sure where we are now. Anyway, we still are in a position to invite presenters. If there's anyone that you all would recommend would come before us in August, the 13th. And it may be even good to have someone when we have our next meeting in October or November, that's going to be a much bigger, meeting with the public. And we are going all out of the way to make sure the public is involved and, engaged in there. as we do the presentation, we may want someone to, or even one of us, one of you all, to frame the why and the when of all that we've been doing. So that is, you know, for that particular meeting, I would think that it would be good to have someone to sort of do the framework, one or two individuals to help frame it before we do the presentation. What's your thoughts? Okay. Okay. All right, so we will make certain that, you know, and if you all are willing to do that, Dr. Kenny and Dr. Ayers, we appreciate it.
One, I had an occasion, you know, my committee has never really met, but I've been working on just finished going through the book on race for profit, which really deals with other urban areas and how housing was developed. But I had occasion to have a meeting with the National Black Realtors.
Oh, okay.
With some members of that group. And I began to talk about, you know, we were looking at housing. And one of them says is, you want to talk about reparation. Here's what we want to propose to you. That the state owns a lot of vacant land. If the state would give that land to us and let us build homes. Let it turn, and he said, and the end result would be generating black wealth in black developers, and we provide housing for black people. It was an interesting concept. We don't want money, we want land.
Wow.
That was their proposal to me in the conversation.
Wow.
That conversation was enhanced, we haven't had further conversation.
Okay.
But it does seem to me at least something worthy of exploring, and what they really want to talk about in terms of the state has all this land that could easily be used. And we're not asking for your tax money, we're asking for the land, and we can do some things to develop resources.
Wow.
For the
Yeah.
black community.
Yeah. And that's interesting because I was on a call after the Supreme Court ruling that evening with a group of all across actually the country. And one of the presenters said to me, not to me, to us, was that, you know, we are, you know, people who are talking about a financial reparation, said if you can, and this is what they were saying, if we can we discourage that? Because there are so many other ways to repair the damage. And they said housing and education and those kind of things. And so there are some schools of thoughts, you know, whether it is financial, you know, or if it's just trying to help move us, this issue further down the way in some other form. And that's what you're talking about. You know, everybody may not get to, because some folks already, you know, they have housing. But if you can, people who are living in some of these areas that they've been in, and I said, concentrated in, you know, impoverished communities that they can't get out. And they would never be able to envision owning their own home. If there is a way to do that, then those are the things that need to be explored, educational wise. Universities giving scholarships for families that, you know, for the next 3, 4, 5 generations, based on, if you look at how many generations was impacted from the enslavement, Jim Crow, massive resistance, and the continuation of it. You know, so there are ways of doing it. And so there is a school of thought. We're not looking for, you know, you don't have to give me a check, but give me another way of helping to move the next generation to a place of them being successful and productive. So thank you, Dr. King, for that. And thank the Housing Committee. You all heard what Dr. King said just now, right?
The Housing Committee is I never met with my partner, never, and but we were getting busy. But that's why I emphasize when I read his reports,
Mhm.
housing is in the report.
Yeah, yeah. Where it's all connected. I mean, it's just been in every way foreseeable. Our communities were impacted every way, you know, so it wasn't just one thing. That was the whole thing again, comprehensive racism. It was to make sure that it's oppressed, you know, entire communities. Okay, let's move on. Let's see, again, any recommendations for presenters, please? And I think we've talked about the California, I'm going all the way down, then feel like going back up, but the California recommendation, was anybody else said anything on that? We sort of talked about it anyway. And
Madam Chair, what is the California recommendation? I just got let into the meeting room when you all had just finished talking about that.
you said what was said about it?
Yes. What,
I think throughout the meeting, we had talked a little bit about it. That's where Dr. Ayers brought in about the mapping of University of Virginia.
Richmond.
University of Richmond, about the redlining and whatnot. So, but do you have something you want to say about it?
I mean,
Beforehand, Cassandra.
I'm sorry? I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I can't hear anything.
It takes a second to switch back and forth.
Oh, okay.
Immediately after the computer, the owl has a little bit of issue bouncing back and forth. So Dr. Newby Alexander, I apologize. It's a technical thing.
Okay. Okay.
When talking and when the folks in Zoom are talking, I apologize. But that's what's happening.
Can you respond to Dr. Alexander, what she was saying? So obviously she has not seen the report.
Is that the case, Dr. Newby Alexander? I can, yes, okay. I don't know if you can see me. There it is. In the report, there was a link in your emails. It is the California Task Force released their final report at the end of June. It includes about 100 or so recommendations, Dr. Newby Alexander, not necessarily one or two. And we were discussing both the length and scope of that report, as well as some of the content that was in it, including mapping that the University of Richmond Digital Scholars Lab presented. It's on page 10, I believe, of the report. And there's some other beautiful mappings and data illustrations that are included in both the executive summary and in the full report. If you don't have that link, I can send it to you right now. Yes, ma'am. I will send it.
Okay. All right.
One thing that struck me from reading the report is the difference in scale between Virginia and California. It's of limited utility to us as a direct model because, as we've said before, Virginia is the place that has the great responsibility in the nation for inculcating racial slavery and sustaining. So it's just a fact that actually could use the California case to show a 1,000-page report about developed. I think it says they thought maybe 1,500 enslaved people lived in California. It's just, we're looking at 400,000 at the same time. So I think we can use that to show that, you know, the group up to this point that has invested a great amount of time and energy in analyzing all of this, still, it's going to take
Another generation.
we're just going to have to it's useful to us to acknowledge the scale and the depth and the duration of Virginia's complicity in this. So I think that was but that's not the reason that we can just multiply 1,000 about 400 more. So another reason to sort of crystallize our thinking. I don't think it requires length. So that was the point, Cassandra, is that just looking at that report is both a model and it's also a difference from what we'll be producing.
Does California have a Dillon rule like Virginia?
I don't know, but can we look it up quickly? I don't know.
The reason, of course, that I ask that is because municipalities and the state, and in some cases, the federal government, were involved in a direct harming of African American communities, especially. And the Dillon rule prevents those municipalities from doing anything unless they go to the Commonwealth itself to approve changing or repairing the harm that they did. And there doesn't seem to be a current will on the part of the General Assembly to change that particular approach to things. And as a result, I think that there has to be some workaround, because in many situations, it was not just the municipalities or the state who were involved. There were some private entities who were also a part of this. And so the Dillon rule doesn't actually apply to them. And so this public-private partnership seems to create a difficulty in applying the Dillon rule, but at the same time, it seems to be this sort of amorphous area of what do you do?
Did you find the teaching? I don't.
They have one. They have one, but it doesn't affect the charge.
Okay. What did you say, Nikki? Please. I know Dillon rule, yeah. It's California. I said California generally considered to be both a home rule and Dillon rule state. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I don't know, I guess that's something that we probably need to look into in terms of the Dillon rule. I don't see the appetite for losing that control from those folks who work in the state. The state legislators. But again, you know, I think there have been some, I guess, once various charter issues have come before legislators, I mean, there have been some opportunities that we've had to relax how you're handling various localities. But I don't know. I think that's a much bigger discussion in terms of the whole issue of the Dillon. Okay. It's both Dillon and home. Yeah. Local government greater. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Is that it, Dominique? Anything else?
I believe that's it.
Yes.
Weren't you, young lady, weren't you here the last time?
I was.
Yes. Yeah, now you're family?
I did.
Well, is it okay if we?
Yeah, well, I was gonna ask anyway, if anyone had any, on the agenda, anything from the public. Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry.
You fine. I saw the entire family. Okay. Really, really cute. Well, if we don't have anything else are we okay? Anything else from? Any of it? Okay. All right. Well, at this time, is there anyone from the public, who want to share anything? Introduce you entire family? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm Ian. I've got
Amazing, Daria and Damien and Mighty and our leader of our family, for that, we're gonna put some money in the mirror. I can comment from here?
Yeah, you can comment. No, you can comment from here.
Thank you.
You open the door tomorrow? You do? And we can see you on camera. How about that? I put you on some busy I have 3 little grandkids, 9, 5, and 3, and no, 9, 5, and 2, so.
Give you a run for your money, right? Well, this is a surprise. Thank you for allowing us up to speak. Please don't do that. Just stand, okay? All right. As I said, I'm Eve. I'm here with my family. We are foundational Black Americans. This debt that you guys have been speaking about is owed to my family and people like some of you guys. I've been listening a lot and trying to make sure that the message is whole. I think that every time Dr. Ayers brings up that this is Virginia's deal, like this is our role, I really appreciate that because it shows the rest of the country that accountability matters. And if we are the state that kind of cajoled everybody to move like this in general, then it would be our duty to reel it back in and make sure that the debt is paid appropriately so that we can finally start to heal. The main thing that I will always bring up is that as long as reparations is in the form of compensation first, I think that if you look at Evanston, Illinois as an example, they rolled out programs first, and as such, the people for, I guess it said from 1919 to 1969, that 50-year that 50 years of harm and trauma, it's only a fraction of what was experienced. And because of that, you can only go but so far. So to start with like a housing program or education program that doesn't really address the general population who was harmed, whereas a compensation or something like that would be able to get the ball rolling. Last time I spoke about how some of these programs take years to develop and to make whole. So just making sure that reparations isn't programs where we're going to have to be waiting for years and years. You Delegate McQuinn said that, it might not happen in your lifetime. And I think that speaking like this right now, it is happening in your lifetime. There might not be a payment tomorrow or anything like that, but this is who we're doing it for. This is why I'm up here speaking. You've got your own descendants and people in your family that you're speaking for. So I just want you to know that that matters. You didn't have to be here. You didn't have to do this. So is it going to happen in our lifetime? Absolutely, because we're already doing the work. So thank you for letting me speak, and I'll definitely be back next time.
And thank you for those $2.
Rips. All right.
Is anyone else from the public? Okay, yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'm a little late. I came here, rushed here, came all the way from Northern Virginia, Fairfax. I rushed here after work. So I missed a lot of the meeting, but this is my second meeting. I missed the last one. There wasn't a notification that we had to be pretty proactive to see, notification. So thanks to cousin Eve back there. But we would have liked to have seen that. I think that we received it in the form of an email versus it being like open to the public or whatever, like the date and the location and everything. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm up on a tangent here. I didn't prepare. I just want to say that I'm here on behalf of my ancestors. I'm Black American on both sides. My family comes from Tazewell County, west of here. That's where the majority of my family is from, Grayson. I just want to make sure that we focus and make sure that this thing is lineage based. Reparations needs to be lineage based. So I want to make sure that we put the emphasis on that. And also I want to again direct. I think that it should be in the form of monetary payments, and also eminent domain here in the state of Virginia. Eminent domain is like a very big thing. There's been a lot of property that's been taken and for public use in the form of like our public parks. We have there's so many different Civil War trails here in the state of Virginia. And like I actually live near a Confederate battlefield, as a matter of fact, in the battlefield of Fredericksburg. So there's been a lot of different, so much land that's been taken and for that use, and these are like the plantations, things that that we definitely should have obtained after slavery that we're taking. So that's pretty much all I have. Just eminent domain. Let's be sure to take that into account for this study. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great. Well, I think Dominique is that. Yeah. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Melissa, and I believe that this is my third meeting. Thank you once again for allowing us to be here and allowing us to input or comment on the committee as a whole as far as what you guys have been doing. I don't want to come up here and sound like a broken record and repeat all of the talking points that came before me, but I am in agreement with them. I do believe that when your final report comes in, the who needs to be specific, and that that is those of us who have a lineage here in the United States of America. My mom's entire lineage is in Virginia. And I think that it definitely needs to be lineage based. When you speak about your recommendations, I do agree that some form of cash payment compensation should definitely be one of your recommendations. They're estimating that by 2050, the Black wealth is going to be zero. And I understand that you guys said you wanted to implement some type of programs, but by the time those programs will be in place, as far as our wealth goes, we may end up on the street somewhere. And I think that no other group who experienced a harm is ever told that they need to have programs in place, or that would be the first recommendation as far as education is concerned. A lot of times, or most oftentimes, there is some type of monetary compensation given to those groups of people for whatever harms that they might have endured here. I come from a long line of military veterans. I am a military veteran myself. I am a second generation college graduate from my family. And a lot of the military veterans in my family did not get the opportunity to experience the benefits of being a military veteran, whether they were excluded from getting some type of pension right after the Civil War. And I have in my lineage one of my ancestors, Jure, who was a Civil War veteran, who sent in an application to receive a pension and he was denied. I have that denial letter in my ancestry right now. A few of my uncles who served in World War I and World War II, who were not able to receive the GI Bill after coming back to the United States of America. And even those of us who were able to get it, even in today's society, oftentimes a lot of us have a college education, but a lot of us don't have a career in our field. a lot of us don't get to see the good side of what a college education can do for us. And a lot of times, a lot of us are often forced to be subjugated to student loans and never be able to pay those loans back. So there's like a double-edged sword when it comes to, education. I think that the land is absolutely, I agree with that, because like, the gentleman that came before me was talking about how land was stolen. I wholeheartedly agree with that. My great-grandmother was a, victim of redlining. And, I think the stolen land definitely needs to return back. Not only that, the generational wealth that was stolen along with the land in the form of some type of monetary payment, there needs to be some type of compensation for that as well. I heard you guys speaking about the California reparations, their findings, and I was following that from the beginning. And I did agree with something that they did express in that, their final report, which was the who, and they were very specific about the who and how, you would qualify as far as being able to trace your lineage back to, here and be identified as Black for, I think it was like 10 years or something like that, but I did agree with that. So, once again, thank you all for having this meeting, and thank you for allowing us, to be here. I know that after you've turned in your final report, it may be up in the air, but, just to consider all of the things that even some of you in here might have experienced or lived through, and all of the things that your family worked so hard to get that might have been stolen, or, and they never were able to get back, and the generations under them were never able to enjoy the fruits of their ancestors' labor. So, thank you so much for allowing me to speak, and, I'll be looking forward to the next meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for your service to
Thank you.
the nation. We appreciate that. Okay. All right. Yes. Another one?
I think, Melanie, when
Yes, I'm sorry.
when they came up, I got distracted. I have to stay one more.
Was it somebody else?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Really quick.
Okay. All right. That's right. Because you got all of the cute things. Whatever you want to do.
Thank you again. I didn't catch your name because I don't know if I've seen you before.
Karen Share.
Dr. Sherry, you said something about contention or opposition, and I was thinking about this bill that I just read about, HR 4321. Do you know about that? It was introduced by Brian Babin of Texas. And basically it's a bill that says that if the state says okay reparations, that the government's supposed to cut off all funding. And I think that if you were going to address opposition, it would need to be in the form of making sure that that bill doesn't go anywhere. Okay, that was the only thing.
Well, you know what? We just, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We, I guess one of the things, and I'm certainly grateful for everyone who's at the table, whatever you're bringing up, whatever you're putting on the table, that it helps to, I guess, for us to be sensitive or cognizant of the fact that things can come up, may come up, and probably will come up. And so let us always be armed with what we need. And I think Dr. Kenny and certainly Senator Locke put it in its right perspective as they talked about truth. So you can argue truth all day long if you want to about the truth, but the truth is the truth. And that is one thing that I felt like we have around this table have worked extremely hard to make sure that things were factual, it's true, and we're just moving forward something that have been tucked away in books and writing and whatnot, and it's important for us to help bring that to the surface. So the understanding of what a race of people have been through it's very clear. So we can, people can argue, they can refute it, they can reject it, but at the end of the day, truth is the truth. Okay. All right, with that, if there's nothing else, thank you again for coming. Thank you for all your input, and we are, I'm excited as we start getting toward the end of this. Very excited, about, the final product, and, what we're gonna give to Virginians, when it's all said and done. Thank you. All right, the meeting for July the 19th, is now, this meeting is adjourned.